For decades, pro wrestlers upheld stringent rules to preserve kayfabe, the illusion that wrestling was a legitimate contest. Though kayfabe is largely gone now, many of the rules persist, except in these cases where they didn't. In the mid-90s, WWF stars Triple H, Shawn Michaels, Diesel, Razor Ramon, and the 1-2-3 Kid formed The Clique, a group of close friends known for their backstage politicking. They aligned backstage even though their in-ring characters were often at odds with one another. In May 1996, Diesel and Razor, aka Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, were on their way out of the company, headed for WCW. At a house show at Madison Square Garden in New York, Triple H and Michaels hugged their departing friends in the middle of the ring, completely breaking character. Nash had wrestled Michaels, who was WWE champion at the time, in the main event. Hall had wrestled Triple H earlier in the show. Fans weren't surprised to see Hall and Michaels, two babyfaces, hug. But when Nash and Triple H, both heels, joined in the farewell party, fans were shocked. Fans spread videos of the incident, and the WWE brass were outraged. Character dynamics between faces and heels remained sacrosanct at that point. Triple H ended up suffering the most punishment from the curtain call. Hall and Nash were out of the company, and Michaels was still reigning as champion. Triple H had been set to win that year's King of the Ring tournament, but instead suffered multiple losses, as former WWE commentator Jim Ross explained.
Triple H had done nothing to be punished for, other than he picked the wrong friends.
A little over 20 years later, another unwritten rule was broken at a Madison Square Garden WWE house show when AJ Styles won the United States Championship from Kevin Owens. Usually, untelevised live events are self-contained. They're considered non-canon, and titles rarely change hands. WWE and other promotions use house shows to test reactions to characters and matchups before potentially using them on TV. Live events are often scripted in favor of babyfaces winning most of the time to keep the crowd happy. Babyfaces may beat heel champions by disqualification so the title doesn't actually change hands, or if there is a title change, it's back to status quo by TV time. In the days of the Monday Night War, Booker T and Chris Benoit traded the WCW World Television Championship back and forth at house shows, but Booker always had it in his hands when it came time for the next Nitro. But Styles didn't drop the belt back to Owens before WWE's next TV taping. Styles was still the champion on the next SmackDown. The two went on to feud for the title and continued to have televised matches. That said, Styles' win wasn't entirely unprecedented. For instance, Diesel won the WWE Championship from Bob Backlund at an MSG Live event in 1994, and just the year before, Samoa Joe won the NXT title from Finn Balor at a house show in Lowell, Massachusetts. For whatever reason, there was a time when it was rare for WWE stars to win in their hometowns. Many fans believed that Vince McMahon, when he was still in power, took some kind of sick pleasure in humiliating the talent.
It's a different vibe when you're out there in front of your family and friends. Like, you have to kind of just pretend they're not there.
But even when Vince was still in charge, there were some exceptions to this odd rule. The most famous probably came at Money in the Bank 2011, when CM Punk, the Second City Saint, faced WWE champion John Cena at Chicago's Allstate Arena. Cena was at the height of his Big Match John era and was all but unbeatable, but Punk got the win in front of a hometown crowd that threatened to riot if he lost. Cena is another example of this unwritten rule not being followed. He took the World Heavyweight Championship from Chris Jericho in his home state of Massachusetts at Survivor Series 2008. Trish Stratus broke two unwritten rules at the Unforgiven pay-per-view in 2006 in Toronto. Stratus defeated Lita to win the Women's Championship, not only winning in her hometown but also winning what was then meant to be her retirement match. Stars usually go out on their back and lose their final matches. When he was still NXT champion in 2015, Kevin Owens made his Raw debut to respond to John Cena's United States Championship Open Challenge. Owens laid out the champion with a pop-up powerbomb, setting up a match at the upcoming Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. Owens also proceeded to stomp right on the U.S. Championship belt, breaking the unwritten rule to never disrespect a championship. Of course, plenty of wrestlers have shown contempt for titles for storyline purposes. Most famously, Medusa tossed the WWE Women's Championship into a trash can on an episode of WCW Monday Nitro, something she later said she regretted doing and tried to make right in her Hall of Fame speech.
I said, do you mind if I get a trash can? There's a couple things I want to pull out. And I said, I want to pull out the title and do something positive.
And Stone Cold Steve Austin threw the Intercontinental title belt over a bridge and into a river on a 1997 Raw to anger his rival, The Rock. Owens would go on to defeat Cena at Elimination Chamber in what was confusingly a non-title match. The two went on to have a rematch at the following Money in the Bank, where Cena got his win back. The feud continued into the next pay-per-view, Battleground, where Owens succumbed to Cena's STF submission. Owens would go on to hold the US title 3 times, but never stopped on it again.